situation where he could see an iris and a pupil behind that black onyx-looking eye in bright daylight. So that whatever that was in the eye, it was light sensitive, and in dim light, it became more transparent. In full sunlight, it was black as onyx, solid, opaque black.
And what did he describe the eye under this shield to look like?
It had an iris a little bit bigger than ours, and a bigger pupil. It was probably one reason why they had to use the shield. They had more sensitive eyes.
And the shape of the pupil and the eye?
It's round, just like ours.
And the pupil as well?
Yeah. And he said that that in 1968, a progress review conference was called at Los Alamos with Edward Teller heading the table, and they took him and his...
The one who eventually hired Bob Lazar.
Yeah. And they took Bill Uhouse and his counterpart, the alien counterpart that he was working with regularly, to Los Alamos to sit around the big oval table with 18 participants to discuss the failure in making any progress in the technology assisted we were supposed to be getting. We haven't learned a damn thing. And they took the alien there with Bill Uhouse. They put him in a white shirt and slacks to make him look less alien, but his proportionately large head and proportionately large black eyes with no hair and everything stood out starkly in contrast to all the other participants around the table. So Bill Uhouse, most engineers are pretty good sketch artists. Bill Uhouse, while he's sitting there, as things were moving along, he's doodling on his pad and he sketched a portrait of J-Rod, is what they called him out there. And even after a while, they began calling Bill Uhouse J-Rod too, because he was spending so much time with the alien.
What did Bill talk to you about the possibility of disease, non-terrestrial diseases that might have been...
He said that we didn't understand all of the physiology of the aliens. The alien couldn't talk, but the alien was telepathic, and he tried to communicate with Bill enough so that Bill finally learned to pick some of it up. So what he couldn't pick up telepathically, the alien could make symbols and motions with his hands and sketch things, like trying to, if he's thinking about making a connection from here to here for such and such reason, he could communicate the idea, but he couldn't write it down, he couldn't articulate it. And Bill eventually got to where he could understand the guy pretty well, and that's why he was at the conference with the alien, is to interpret for the alien and tell him what the alien was thinking or saying.
So let's get back to that conference now then. You've got the 18 people sitting around there at the table. And what happens?
Well, I wasn't at the conference, I don't know.
What did Bill say?
He said that the conference lasted about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and the various departments made their reports on their attempts to solve some of the technological problems that they that were involved in understanding the spacecraft, and each department made their report on their failure to accomplish this or accomplish that, and the reasons for it, to Teller, to head the table. And when they adjourned, they agreed that they hadn't made a great deal of progress and may not make a lot of progress.
There is much more disturbing information that Uhouse offers that confirms the basic tenets in the Connor Orion case. 1. That a group of multinational corporations, along with the U.S. military, are covertly hiding the existence of extraterrestrials and their secret flying disc back engineering program. And equally troubling, that 2. These bases of operation within the United States are behaving as separatist nation-states, headed by leaders of these multinational corporations and high-ranking military officers who don't answer to either the President or Congress. Uhouse explains what he observed from the inside for over 30 years. There are little countries within this country. You've got one not so far from here. It's part of Area 51, but a portion of that facility is a separate country. It's run by certain individuals. They've got their own rules, their own laws. I've been out there many times. I've been in some of the tunnels. But New Mexico has their own little country, and that is not the government. That's a separate entity in its own. And there's certain levels of clearances that you'd have to go through for certain aspects of that particular work going on, whether it's the flying discs or other things that they're doing. You're not going to get into any of these facilities. Now, these little satellite countries here in the United States, they have nothing to do with the government. As a matter of fact, if anybody read the paper, you'll find out that this suit that's against Area 51 for burning toxic waste, they wanted to set it up so that it would be held in Washington, D.C. And of course, the justices there said no, they wouldn't take it, and it's transferred back here to Las Vegas. They won't even handle it. Impossible. They just can't do it. And I'm sure Wendelle knows about some of this stuff. He's probably been involved, and a few other people here that I know that are very familiar with the way certain parts of this U.S. government interact with these particular areas. There are certain people up there in D.C., I'm sure, that are aware of everything that's going on, and there's a wall that's put up between that group and the groups that are at these satellite facilities. I mentioned Teller's name before, and he's probably one of them. They have their own organization that's controlling all of this, and it's their own government. It's Gestapo, really, it's Gestapo, and these guys are tough. Until all the information is going to come out, which is going to take many years before it does, you're going to keep getting trickle, 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 and maybe one day, if we're still alive, maybe we'll understand everything as our little satellite governments know it here in the United States.
The aliens are still there, by the way.
In S4.
One of them is ill, yeah. They're still here. We rotated our scientists. We wanted them to bring our exchange scientists back in 2 years, which they did, and we sent 2 more. And I think we rotated them every 2 years. So we must have a dozen or more scientists that had been to that home planet for a year or more and come back.
Now also down in level 2, there are 7 gray bodies. Little humanoid type creatures. We're in a solution. About how tall is it? I would say max 3.5, maybe almost 4 feet max. Oh, they're absolutely identical. I've never had a chance to sit and observe them for more than maybe a minute, but I couldn't see no individual identification on any of them. I mean, no different lines on their face or anything of that sort.
Now you said a little earlier that they called this place the museum. You got any idea why they called it that?
Yes, I think it's because, I mean, we all referred to it as a museum because I think that all of this stuff has basically been analyzed before.
Yeah, he said that he saw 5 or 6 tanks, the vertical cylinders that held a human-sized cadaver pickled in some kind of solution and visible through the glass tank, like a big glass test tube. But he could only see the front 2, the details of the front 2, because the rest were obscured by the front 2 in the line. It looked like the bodies were held erect by a metal band around the waist. Otherwise, they were completely naked. The eyes of one of them was sunken back quite a bit, indicating that it had been there for some time.
Now, over on this, there's a hallway down here that breaks off, which is there's a big computer system right here. I believe it's a computer system. I'm not going to say for sure. Right here is a level. There's 7 tubes. These tubes are about 2 feet in width. They're about 6 feet in height.
They stand on end.
They stand on end on end. Now, as you walk in and you look at these tubes, I'm just going to draw a picture of one. They're all exactly the same. The creatures inside are completely identical. There's absolutely no way that I can see of identifying each and every one of them individually.